Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here for Popternative, speaking to Román Zaragoza about ghosts on CBS. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me.
I mean, it's pretty exciting. I mean, you're doing a lot of these interviews as well. Like, has it still hit you though that like the show is out? Like, you work on this show, and then it's out, and then people can see it. Like, I feel like that's just a really interesting mindset. Just kind of like making it, and then it's out.
It's different, because I come from theater where, everything is so instant. You're right there, you perform, and you get that instant gratification. You can kind of engage with the audience right there and then. And now it's like, people are coming up to me like, "Hey, I love the episode from last night." I'm like, "What episode aired last night?" Like I need to remember like what episode we're on and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a different process for sure. But it's been amazing. I'm just so grateful for the feedback, and people are really loving the show, which is so exciting. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to be part of it.
Did you go to a high school that was like a performing arts high school that had like productions at all? Because you say you started theater. Did you? Because I went to one of those schools.
Oh, cool. No, I didn't go to a performing arts high school per se, but my school had a really good theater department, and I pretty much just lived there.
See,
That's
it's
all I
interesting
did.
because what you just said, when I went there, that's what it was. It was a school that did a lot of things and it had like pretty decent like performing arts. But now, like I graduated like 5-6 years later, apparently it's like a performance art school. So I guess maybe like we
Oh,
paved the way
wow.
for it a little bit.
I feel that. I feel that for sure. Oh my God. Like, it's funny to think about like shows like Glee were kind of coming out when I was like, coming up in, high school, middle school, and like that kind of world was becoming cooler. Of course, when I was in it, it was not cool, but it was still it's exciting. And now there's like High School Musical, the musical, and High School Musical, all those.
Oh
So
yeah.
like, I think it's been fun to see like how there's been a little bit more of a spotlight on
There's a
that.
Mean Girls musical on Broadway,
That's right.
which
Yes,
is
I
like
actually.
amazing.
Yeah. That's right. I actually my ex-girlfriend's on that tour right now, and I have a bunch of friends on that tour, and it's just such an amazing show. Highly recommend people to go see it. It's so good.
It's amazing as well, and go CBS. I mean, one of my favorite things about this show, I mean, ensemble cast with so many amazing characters, so many different characters. So, I mean, the question I have for you right now is, it's one thing to be on like an ensemble cast, but when you kind of read the scripts and you see kind of all the different types of characters, that's a pretty cool, exciting thing and experience as well, right? Like the different characters, different personalities on the show, Ramon.
Of course, it's been interesting to like navigate the, kind of like TV is confusing sometimes because you got to show up day one ready to go. And when you have an ensemble comedy, it can be kind of intimidating because you got to show up day one and have that chemistry with your ensemble. Everyone has to like take their space. And it's such a big ensemble with such big characters and big personalities. So sometimes you have to find that space. But for us, it was just like it just clicked. It was amazing. Day one on that pilot, everyone we fell in love with each other, first of all, and second of all, we all just kind of found our place. Also, the writing is incredible with our amazing showrunners, Joe Port, Joe Wiseman. Like
Mhm.
it was easy. It felt so effortless, which really excited all of us because we're like, I think we got something here.
Well, how much did you know then when you kind of signed up for this and everything? You read the scripts. Like, did you know early on that you were going to be working with like a big cast? There's a lot of characters. Like, were you able to prepare yourself a little bit? Like, yeah, like if I get this, like I'm most likely working with a lot of people, or did you find out afterwards?
No, I knew, like,
Okay.
when I auditioned, I'm like, "Oh, it's a big cast," and I was excited about that because I'm such an ensemble-oriented person. I
Mhm.
love, collaborating. I love being part of a team, so that excited me because also this is my first time being a series regular, so I was like, "This is
Yeah.
a little bit of a buffer. I don't have to just be just me up there. It's like I'm with a team and people are taking care of you." So I've just been, yeah, I love this ensemble so much. The cast is amazing. It's been a dream.
You hear a lot of those stories of like people that started in theater. I mean, that's basically where you learn your craft. Like
Mhm.
people in some of the best, TV shows and movies out there started in theater and then they moved in. I'm actually moved to, TV and film. I'm finding out now, apparently, and I'm curious because you have probably a lot of friends in this circle as well. Is it happening the other way around too? Are there people that like weren't like involved with theater at all that worked in TV and film and that are joining theater and working on plays and everything? Does that happen, or is it a
For
little bit?
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It does, yeah, it does happen. I think it happens in LA when some film and TV actors who like really grew up in that world are like, I want to do some theater because I think theater really challenges actors
Yep.
because you got to go from the start of that character's arc to the end of the arc in one show, which
Hmm.
is, in my opinion, the the most exciting part sometimes of acting. You can go on that whole journey in one day in one 3 hour segment versus in film and TV you shoot an episode and it takes a week, or you shoot a movie it takes a couple months.
Yep.
Like it's a different journey. And it's a different journey for sure. But I love both mediums, and
Yeah.
ideally I just want to be able to do both.
Well, what I find interesting too is, like I said at the beginning of the interview, like performing arts background at school and everything. There's this feeling though, like the live show component obviously is a lot different too. You're doing it like in
Mhm.
front of a live audience. Isn't there a feeling like the day of a performance though, even if it's like the morning of, there's like a rush, right? Like the day
Oh,
of,
for
it's like one of the
sure.
best things, right?
For sure. There's such a rush. There's such a feeling of like, hope this goes right,
Yeah.
but that fear for me is exhilarating because it means I'm challenging myself. It means that I'm like putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And of course for film and TV, I feel that too.
But
But
it's a little
for
later. The
film and
hope it
TV,
goes well is later though, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Or for film and TV, I can be like, can I get another take? Like, I think I can do that better,
Yeah, you're on
But
like set.
for
You're doing like a musical. Can I have another take at that? You ask the audience, hey, can I do that
Yeah,
again?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's like, nope, no, you just gotta keep going, man. And I've made mistakes on stage before. I've frozen or forgotten a line, and you just
Yeah.
gotta figure it out.
Have you
There's
ever
no
seen? Have you ever seen the clip? I think it was Daniel Craig and Hugh Jackman, and they were doing a Broadway show, and somebody's phone rang in the audience. And do you know where I'm going with
Mhm.
this? And like they literally like paused and like he talked to the guy. He's like, answer it, like during like the
Mhm.
take.
That has happened to me too. I was working at a theater up in Oregon called the Oregon Shakespeare Festival,
Mhm.
an amazing place. I worked there for 3 years, and and that would happen occasionally. We'd have a phone go off, and I would just be like, there's a few times where you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep going. But there's a few times where you're like, oh my gosh, it's ringing again. You have to answer this phone. Like you just like pause and look out at the audience, like, really? Like, come on, come
Could you
on.
imagine just like bring like just like you're in, it's like a really like intense scene or something, and there's a pause, and you're just like you break out of character like, so how's your day going, everyone? And everyone claps and waiting for this guy to like answer his phone.
The audience loves that. It's of course it sucks to take it out of the scene, and I hate it, but
Mhm.
sometimes like you live for that, and that's what live theater is. It's right there, and if something happens that is distracting, it's going to affect the performance. So
Yeah, no.
I think it's fun.
Well, everything we're talking about right now, whether it's the TV and film, whether it's the performing, like the playwrights, like stage and everything, it's storytelling. So Román Zaragoza is a storyteller. That's what you do. What
Mhm.
excites you about storytelling specifically?
Well, I think storytelling is innate in all of us as human beings,
Mhm.
and and the biggest thing that I think we all need to realize is that we have stories that deserve to be told
Yep.
from either ourselves, our families, our ancestors, wherever it's from. And I think for me, it's been exciting to learn more about my family, about where I come from, about who made it possible for me to be here.
Yep.
And then through that, I found my voice, and through that, I found stories that I wanted to tell. and I love lifting other people who would feel the same way.
Mhm.
And I think that's just an exciting place to be, and it's an exciting time to be in,
Yep.
where people are listening to more stories from, oppressed groups of people, and so I'm just very grateful to yeah, that people are willing to listen to my story.
Stories that were never told are finally getting told,
Mhm.
and I think it's just the greatest thing of all time. And I think kind of adding to that too, it's just there's so many, like, it's crazy to me, like looking at all the content out there right now, and it's crazy that there's no like one reason why. Like there's many reasons why I think it is the golden age of content right now. Like there's so many reasons. Things are
Mhm.
filmed so stunningly. Like the aesthetic is
Mhm.
just eye candy. Stories that
Oh my
weren't told
gosh.
are finally getting told. The writing is
Mhm.
just amazing. The global access, though, for me, is the
Mhm.
icing on the cake. I don't know about you. The fact that so many people get a chance to see all your work just like that is pretty crazy, Ramon.
Yeah, it's true. It's pretty incredible to see it, how connected
Yep.
this world is now,
Yeah.
and how, someone across the world can be watching Ghosts and then reach out to me on Instagram, like, and we can have a conversation. Like, that is
About
pretty
ghosts.
wild. Yeah, literally, it's pretty insane. Pretty insane, yeah.
Before we wrap up, I did have a question. Like when I got this interview confirmed, because I love the show, and it's something I always think about the show, and I'm really excited to ask you about this. Um, Ghosts, CBS. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
There's some funny
Mhm.
moments in it, right? But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, there's of course like the dark kind of undertones and themes about it. Like there, death is involved with this show. You know what I mean? There are ghosts and everything. What's your mindset like working on a comedy with those kind of dark kind of layers here and there, with the fact that it is about death in a lot of ways? Because I feel like that's kind of an
Mhm.
interesting, unique situation for a lot of the actors on that show, Ramon. I will have to say, what do you think about that?
Oh, I love this question. In order to answer this question, I have to talk about a show that I did back in 2017, back at the Oregon Chaser Festival, called Off the Rails. And it was an adaptation of Measure for Measure. And it was about the boarding schools that, a lot of, pretty much that affected all Indian country and a lot
Yep.
of Native people. And it was a very horrific time that lasted up into, way later than people even realize, way late into the 20th century. And so it was heavy. It was a very heavy show,
Yeah.
and about a heavy topic about, all this. But the way that we approached it was through comedy. We
Okay.
approached it through laughter and through, allowing the audience to say, hey, you can laugh.
Mhm.
Okay. Please laugh. Because in order for them to really understand the, just the real, I guess, like the real trauma that happened, and all
Yep.
this difficult messages that we're trying to tell, we did it through comedy.
Yep.
And the writer Randy Reinholtz, who's one of my mentors and artistic director of Native Voices, former artistic director of Native Voices, told me that that's how you get the message through. You got
Mhm.
to make them laugh before you make them cry.
Yep.
And since then, I've been like, that's my avenue forward too. It's like, I want to use comedy in order to talk about those more difficult issues. and
Yep.
and I think there are a lot of storytellers and people that I've met in my life who have affirmed the same thing, like the 1491s, Sterling Harjo, who is a showrunner and creator of Reservation Dogs.
Yep.
It's the same thing. It's like they're talking about heavy stuff, but they're doing it through laughter, through that medium,
Which
through
could
that
look on the
comedy.
surface can look like a very difficult task. Like it's almost like a how are you going to do
It's
this?
100%. But in my opinion, that's life.
Yeah.
Like, so many times when the most difficult and devastating things have happened to me, I'm laughing because something really like stupid and hilarious happens, and then I'm like reminded, oh my god, this horrible thing just happened. Like, that's life. and
Yeah.
and I think that's been the really cool part about Ghosts. It's like really just trying to bring this reality to everything, because can you imagine being in this purgatory and like having to figure out like how to cope with your days? It's hilarious, and it's devastating, and it's horrifying, but it's funny. I think it's
Yeah.
so funny. And yeah, so I'm just really grateful that to be on a show that also talks about death, because death is something I've like most people have struggled with in my life, and
Yeah.
how have I approached it is again through comedy.
Because I'm
through,
noticing that
through
right now, some of my favorite comedies out there have like very tough subject matter. Like it's all across the board, like very difficult subject matter when you think about it. And they're comedies, they're sitcoms. You know what I mean?
100%. I'll talk about Adam McKay's Don't Look Up that
Yep.
came out recently. I know that was kind of like a controversial movie, but I loved it. I thought it was so funny. It's so real and raw, and like that's, in my opinion, I love that. I love that kind of.
We could have a whole conversation too about looking at past sitcoms and just looking at every sitcom is just dealing with like the most intense social issues. Like they're like all of them. You can name them all, and there's like pretty intense stuff happening. So I don't think this is something new that we're seeing. But I think, again, I don't know about you, I did a lot of self-reflection during the pandemic. So you think about a lot of these things. You know, you do interviews like this and like you think about it. Like, have you been doing a lot of that too? Like thinking about things and like that you maybe weren't doing? Like the pandemic opened up for a lot of self-reflection. It did.
For sure. Oh my God. Pandemic made me think about everything that I believed, and I had to kind of self-reflect on so much of what I was giving my time to, my focus to. And so, yeah, of course, the pandemic has been very difficult for so many people, and including myself, but there have been silver linings for sure, and it's given us the time to pause and reflect.
100%. And Román, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on Popternative Chat about Ghost. This was a great conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Ghost on CBS. I could check that out. And where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
To follow me on social media, my Instagram is Román Zaragoza.
Yep.
My Twitter is the Román Zaragoza, and my Twitter is Román Zara_Goza. I made them, and some people had my name already, so I wish I could just be Román.
So Instagram, Twitter,
platforms.
what's the third one?
Oh, my TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah.
So TikTok, I'm the Román Zaragoza. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Román Zaragoza, who you can catch in Ghosts on CBS, and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.